Well, a couple of things really is what is affecting global markets over the last day or so. One is that the US employment numbers will be out on Friday, US time, of course. So we'll have to wait for that one. Investors will be waiting out for that one. And the other real point of contention which investors are currently dealing with is, of course, the US-China tensions in the South China Sea as well as in the Taiwan region, largely on the back of Nancy Pelosi visiting Taiwan. So we're looking at those two real factors influencing markets at the moment. Oil prices have come off, so that is also what is impacting markets. And let's move on to how US markets look. Dow down around 0.25%, but it's down around 0.4% for the week to date. So need to see how the Dow closes the week. Where the S&P 500 is concerned, largely flat. Negative bias is where the S&P 500 was, down around 10 basis points in trade yesterday, but higher by around 0.5% in trade for the week gone by. And we're looking at the Nasdaq, which actually gained in trade on Thursday and is in fact gaining over 2.5% for the week as well. So the Nasdaq really outperforming US indices, the other US indices, if I may call it, and even a lot of global indices is where the Nasdaq is placed at the moment. Now moving to Europe, of course, the focus largely in Europe is that the Bank of England has hiked rates, the highest in over 25 years, a 0.5% rate hike by the Bank of England, which takes their rates to around 1.75%. And that has, of course, led to a little bit of a tailspin for markets, but they rebounded and they recovered quite well. We're looking clearly at gains across even European markets. In fact, the DAX is up around 0.5% plus in trade yesterday at close. The FTSE was largely flat, up around 3 basis points. So positive close nonetheless. So definitely positive cues, and even the stock 600 up around 0.5% in trade on Thursday. So clearly a lot of positive cues even from Europe. When I'm moving on to where Asia is looking at in terms of early trade today, well, the Nikkei is up around 0.6% in trade. The Shanghai and the Hang Seng are flat. In fact, the Hang Seng is 0.5% lower in trade, and the ASX 200 up around 0.4%, while the Kospi is up around 0.8%. So some positivity across Asian indices. We're looking at a mild positive even for India. When I'm looking at commodities and switching over, oil has fallen below that $90 a barrel, largely on the back of two reasons. One is the US has showed up on its reserves. That's point number one. Point number two, of course, an oncoming recession. That's the fear, and probably that's why oil demand is expected to be on the fall, which is what is leading to an oil price retreat. It's retreated below the $90 a barrel, currently at around $88.5 a barrel as we speak. Moving quickly on to gold. Well, gold has actually made a good meaningful gains, couple of percent up is where gold is. It's currently above that $1,800 an ounce, in fact very close to that $1,810 an ounce mark. Mind you, it was at around 1780. So clearly seeing some gains here, gold, and that's largely on the back of inflation. Of course, that's point number one. Rate hikes, point number two, and largely the recession fear, as well as China, US really playing spoil, or rather really aiding gold higher. So that's what's leading gold prices higher. And the dollar index, in fact, has cooled off. It's below that 106 mark. It's in fact around that 105.5 mark as we speak. So that's also what is aiding gold. Moving quickly on to bonds as well, right? Bond yields now have cooled off slightly. They've come from that 2.72, 2.73 mark to around that 2.65% is where the US 10-year bond yield is. So a little bit of a cool off, a retreat in bond yields, largely on the back of the same reasons I stated why gold is gaining. So largely the same factors is what is cooling off bond yields at the moment. Lastly, we're looking at cryptos and Bitcoin. That has fallen slightly, but it's still hovering in that in that range. Bitcoin is in the range of around the 22,500 to 23,000 to 23,500 kind of range at the moment, and largely all cryptos are range bound. They've been spiking up and coming back off, not really being able to sustain either the fall or the rise. That's how it's playing out. Of course, we're looking at a mild positive start from Indian indices, largely on the back of good positive global cues at the moment.